Here we will discuss the latest recommendations given by the American Heart Association regarding CPR, BLS and ALS in children. See, this is very important both from theory and practical point of view, as BLS and ALS have mandatorily been made a part of undergraduate and postgraduate syllabus, skill lab and also of examination. AHA has made certain changes and some additions to the existing 2015 guidelines. So there are 5 changes and 2 add-ons we'll see subsequently. Coming on to the changes, the rate of rescue breaths have been increased from 1 breath every 3 to 5 seconds to 1 breath every 2 to 3 seconds. That is from 12 to 20 breaths per minute to 20 to 30 breaths per minute. This is in case of basic life support. Similarly, in advanced life support, that is with an advanced airway in place, again the rate of breaths has been increased from 1 breath every 6 seconds to 1 breath every 2 to 3 seconds. That is from 10 breaths per minute to 20 to 30 breaths per minute. So in short, wheresoever you need to give rescue breaths, either in BLS or in ALS, rates have been standardized. The third change is that earlier it mentioned that cuffed endotracheal tubes are preferable, but they had not refuted the use of uncuffed tubes. Now they say that only cuffed endotracheal tubes should be used. This is because it has been found that they are associated with decreased need for tube changes and re-intubation, decreased risk of aspiration, and a decreased possibility of subglottic stenosis. While earlier blood pressure was used to monitor the quality of CPR, now they have specifically mentioned diastolic blood pressure for monitoring the quality of CPR. Since rates of survival with favorable neurological outcome was found if diastolic blood pressure was at least 25 mm mercury in infants and at least 30 mm mercury in children. Here I would like to remind you that high quality chest compressions have 6 features, viz push hard, push fast, allow complete chest recoil. Actually, allowing complete chest recoil decides diastolic blood pressure and myocardial perfusion. The compressions should be at the rate of 100 to 120 per minute. Ensure adequate depth, which is around 4 centimeters in infants and 5 centimeters in older children. Minimize interruptions and avoid hyperventilation. The last recommendation mentions that post-cardiac arrest survivors should be monitored for neurological morbidity for at least a year after recovery. In addition to 2015, as regards the development of hypoxic seizures after return of spontaneous circulation, continuous EEG monitoring is recommended in those in persistent encephalopathic stage. Also, clinical seizures and non-convulsive status epilepticus should be treated in expert consultation. But the anticonvulsant regimen can be the same as for seizures due to other etiologies, as was recommended in 2015. Then re-emphasis has been done on 2 recommendations from 2015, whereas routine use of cricoid pressure is not recommended during endotracheal intubation since it does not decrease the rate of regurgitation, and administer epinephrine the initial dose within 5 minutes of start of chest compressions. So here in 2020 the AHA has specified the time after the start of chest compressions when epinephrine needs to be administered. The recommendations are also for septic and hemorrhagic shock. For septic shock, they say administer fluid in 10 to 20 ml per kg aliquots with frequent assessment since fluid overload is associated with greater mortality. Use either epinephrine or norepinephrine as the initial vasoactive agent in patients with fluid refractory shock and may consider stress dose corticosteroids in fluid refractory shock requiring vasoactive support. For hemorrhagic shock, administer blood products instead of crystalloids for ongoing volume resuscitation. And for septic shock 2020 guidelines, please refer to another video link I have shared in the description box below. Since myocarditis is associated with high risk of cardiac arrest, arrhythmias, heart block and cardiac output, one must consider early transfer to ICU monitoring, pre-arrest use of extracorporeal life support, and early extracorporeal CPR if cardiac arrest develops in these patients. Pulmonary hypertensive crisis should be treated with inhaled nitric oxide or prostacyclin. Careful monitoring and management is required to avoid hypoxia and acidosis. Adequate analgesics, sedatives, and neuromuscular blocking agents should be given, and initial management of hypertensive crisis with oxygen and induction of alkalosis by hyperventilation or alkali administration needs to be done. As regards the BLS and ALS algorithms, a sixth link of recovery has been added in pediatric in-hospital and out-of-hospital cardiac arrest chain of survival. A single algorithm is now for pediatric tachycardia with pulse including both narrow and wide complex tachycardias. Two new opioid associated emergency algorithms have been added. See, this is something new. And a new checklist for pediatric post cardiac arrest care has also been provided. There are recommendations for single ventricle pre and post-op considerations also, but I have not covered the same here because most of the educational institutions, they don't have the facility for pediatric cardiac surgery patients. So summarizing, there are 5 new recommendations regarding the rate of rescue breaths in BLS, in ALS, use of cuffed endotracheal tubes, diastolic blood pressure as the marker for CPR quality, and follow-up of post-cardiac arrest survivors. Also, re-emphasis has been placed on treatment of seizures post-return of spontaneous circulation, use of cricoid pressure, and epinephrine administration, for which they have defined the time as 5 minutes or within 5 minutes of cardiac arrest. Friends, CPR, BLS and ALS have been an all-time important, but now even more so post the COVID pandemic. So do share the knowledge, and thank you.